Hello Mark, alright mate? Good stuff, nice one. Have we had any new codes in lately? I've not checked in a couple of days. One I'd like, alright, go on. An aquatic adventure, okay, sounds interesting. With a powerful story too. Almost Shakespearean, you say? Well, you know me, I do like a bit of Shakespeare. Romeo, Romeo, let down your hair and all that, it's good, isn't it? Wherefore art thou? Is that what it says? Alright, fair enough. Anyway, yeah, no, it sounds good. What's the name of this one then? Why are you going to text me it later? Just tell me it now while we're on the phone. What's it called? What do you mean you don't want to? What's the name of this game? Oh, for
Okay, you lot have been asking for it ever since I highlighted it in an upcoming games video, so My Girlfriend is a Mermaid. Thanks to the developers for the review copy. Now let's dive ocean deep in and find out what this one's all about. The visual novel genre is one that I've certainly enjoyed in the past. In fact, a couple of my favourite ever Nintendo DS games were visual novels, being Hotel Dusk and The Last Window. The classic noir storytelling mixed with innovative and intriguing puzzles really showed me how good the genre can be. Zero Escape on the 3DS was another fantastic example of the genre, adding escape room segments into the mix. Comedic segment at the start of this video aside, I went into My Girlfriend is a Mermaid with an open mind. So the story begins with a discussion on childhood friends and how reconnecting with them after a number of years can be good for the soul. It reminds us that no matter how much they've changed, they should be treated the same. We are then introduced to our childhood friend. Bloody hell, she certainly has changed, hasn't she? Oh, and she's got a tail too. Didn't see that. In all fairness, the story is translated very well. I didn't see a single typo and is well written in regards to the vocabulary used as well. The game also uses a good standard of adjectives, verbs and adverbs, which I do appreciate. My Girlfriend is a Mermaid contains a fair amount of innuendo, and it's quite amusing at times reading the main character's inner monologue about the confusion he is feeling regarding his physical urges towards a homopiscus. Regarding the story itself, it takes a long time to get going. In fact, the first 50 minutes are basically a repeat cycle of the man saying something to inadvertently offend the female character screaming, her hitting him round the face with her tail, him explaining how the floor tastes, and them doing it all over again. It starts to get pretty tedious very quickly. It's a strange one to explain because the writing, in terms of the language used, is, as already mentioned, of a good standard, and with the main character being a scientist, he regularly muses on particular theories or delivers exposition on the mythology of mermaids and applies this to his current situation, and these internal monologues are actually quite interesting. But outside of these, the basic narrative, when boiled down, is incredibly immature. It's a very jarring juxtaposition. Finally, after about an hour of playing, I was actually given something to do with a choice of how to proceed in the story. But in terms of the story itself, nothing had really happened yet. I could have almost watched 1984's Splash in its entirety in the time I had been playing, and apart from man meets back up with his childhood friend and is shocked to discover she's now a mermaid, there had been absolutely no progression at all. I'm all for slow burners, don't get me wrong. Keep the origins of her metamorphosis into a mermaid a secret by all means for the time being, but at least tell me an interesting story as you build up to the reveal. In terms of the aforementioned choices within the game, you will occasionally be asked to make a decision as to how you would like to proceed, and the story will go down a slightly different path as a result before meeting back up on the main story path further on. Once you finish reading through a day of the story, you will unlock certain information, such as character profiles, and you can jump to any scenes or endings from the main menu and make alternative choices from here. They are hardly critical elements that you are changing though, with an early one asking you whether for lunch you would like to find something to eat or starve. I mean, it's not exactly Sophie's choice now, is it? The mermaid eats fish as well, by the way. Yep, that's another secret that Disney have kept from us from all these years. Basically, as soon as the camera stopped rolling, Ariel had flounder and chips for lunch. And I bet Sebastian didn't last much longer either. The controls are extremely simple and easy to use. The A button is used to navigate the text, Y will change the text to auto scroll, and R will allow you to skip. Pressing X at any point will bring up your options menu. From here, you can save the game, load a previous save, adjust the volume, or bring up a log of everything that has been said so far should you need to reread something. Now don't get me wrong, I do understand that as a 35-year-old man, I'm not exactly the game's intended target audience, but I can appreciate a well-told story, even if it isn't to my individual tastes. But this just isn't a very well-told story, and has serious pacing issues. The narrative itself is incredibly juvenile, and the characters are very annoying. They will turn up, leading to you having to read 10 to 15 screens of back and forth dialogue, which usually ends with the male character being hit by the female character, the screen shaking and turning red, and me none the wiser as to what's actually going on. It's such a very childish form of storytelling, and by the midway point the story was practically nonsensical, and I was seriously beginning to lose interest in what I knew and patience to find out any more. Had the writing style followed the internal monologue sections a bit more, I feel the game would have benefited more as a whole, adding very limited player interaction, albeit with solid controls, and story receives 4 out of 20, whilst gameplay and controls receive 10 out of 20. Backgrounds are static, and a couple of different art styles are used, ranging from pastel coloured to rich oil paint type styles to photographs to more traditional hand-drawn environments. These range in quality, with the photographs in particular usually going for a blurred, out of focus effect, which is quite a strange artistic choice. Painted backgrounds have a nice clean look to them and help to bring the setting to life a bit more. Everything is nice and colourful, and to be fair it looks like a very warm game when playing, with colours practically bursting out of the screen. The character models on the other hand go for a hand-drawn anime style, with a limited amount of animation between each pose. I like the fact that the medium of the background is mixed up, and a grey filter is applied to the screen whenever the character is internally monologuing, which is quite a nice touch. The character models, whilst nicely drawn, do play it a little safe in terms of being pretty much exactly what you would expect anime female characters to look like, and therefore come across as a little generic, but overall, visuals receive 13 out of 20. The music goes from fairly calming and not at all intrusive background melodies to tunes that, had I closed my eyes, I could quite easily have believed that Puyo Puyo Tetris was currently on the Switch instead. Sound effects are used to convey actions, and the voice acting is available in both Japanese or Korean with English text. The audio always fits the game well, and although the character voices were a little distracting when trying to read, to the game's credit, it does give you the option to turn each character's voice down individually to one another and separately from the background music. Audio receives 12 out of 20. My Girlfriend is a Mermaid costs £22.50, €24.99 or $24.99, and value is actually quite difficult to quantify with this one, but I will try to give my reasoning in as balanced a way as possible. For me personally, when you read a novel, your engagement is kept by having to take the words of the writer and imagine the world they create. By its very nature, a visual novel loses a little bit of this engagement by having some of that world displayed for you. But what they can do is build engagement in other ways with the clever use of puzzles or design points where your choices change the course of the story. My Girlfriend is a Mermaid does have some decision points, as already mentioned, and it does have multiple endings, to be fair too. It also has achievements as an incentive to try and find them. What it lacks is a compelling enough story to make this feel essential to do so. In my personal opinion, a visual novel needs to be a lot more interactive to be worth its price, or really needs to bring a fantastic story to life. I just don't feel that this game does either of these things. If you love visual novels just for the joy of reading a book brought to life, then add another 5 points onto this section, but for me, value gets 8 out of 20. To conclude, My Girlfriend is a Mermaid is a very niche game, and if you are more than happy to have your visual novels with limited player interaction and don't mind paying a higher tiered eShop price for the privilege, then bear these in mind when considering this game. However, that still leaves a story that is very poorly told in terms of its story arc, focusing much of its time on the basic analogy of how you would pull the pigtails of the girl you used to like at school. It also has characters that are extremely irritating, and a story about mythical creatures as fascinating as mermaids should not have me sighing every time they appear on screen. The character dialogue made me want to jump into the ocean for myself, and I don't even have a sodding tail. The story is padded out way too much with unnecessary filler that adds nothing to the overall story arc, or never seems to really aid character development either in any meaningful way. The game is presented well, and I'll give credit where it's due. There is some replay value in terms of multiple endings, but the story is so poor, most people will never attempt to unlock them. My Girlfriend is a Mermaid gets a SwitchUp score of 47%. Many thanks as always for watching. I hope the wait for this one has been worth it. Please do leave a like down below, if nothing else to show your appreciation for me sinking about 6 hours into this one so far. Many thanks as always to our Patreons for your continued support, and to everyone else for watching our videos. Now if you excuse me, Daryl Hannah, all is forgiven. Where is my VHS copy of Splash? I think I'll give it a watch. Till the next one everyone, happy gaming.